My name is Amanda, I'm 32, and last Christmas changed everything I thought I knew about family. I drove through light snow to my parents' suburban home. My kids Emma and Jacob bouncing with excitement in the backseat, homemade cookies, and carefully wrapped presents on their laps. When I knocked on the familiar door of my childhood home, my mother Diane peeked through the window, then opened it just enough to say, "Today's not a good day for your kind of energy." My children looked up at me, confusion in their eyes. I just took their hands and said, "Let's go get pancakes." Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had family drama around the holidays. Growing up in a middle-class Portland suburb, I never questioned that something was off about our family dynamics. My mother, Diane, ran our household with military precision and emotional manipulation that I only recognized years later in therapy. Everything had to be perfect: our grades, our appearance, our behavior, especially when others were watching. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never match the golden status of my younger sister Rachel. Rachel was 3 years younger than me, but somehow always seemed to be miles ahead in our mother's eyes. When I brought home A-minuses, Rachel brought home A-pluses. When I made the volleyball team, Rachel became team captain. It wasn't that Rachel was terrible. We actually got along well as kids, but our mother's blatant favoritism created an unspoken competition that poisoned what could have been a normal sisterly relationship. I still remember my 16th birthday when my parents gave me a used Civic with 80,000 miles on it. I was grateful, thrilled even, until Rachel's 16th birthday 3 years later, when she received a brand new Volkswagen Beetle. When I mentioned the disparity, my mother said, "Rachel has always known exactly what she wants in life. You should take notes." It was the story of our childhood in one cutting remark. I met David during my sophomore year of college. He was kind, stable, and genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings, all novelties compared to my family experience. We married when I was 21, partly because I loved him and partly because I was desperate to create my own family, one where love didn't come with conditions and comparisons. Emma came along a year later, and Jacob 3 years after that. For a while, we were happy. My mother criticized my rush into marriage and motherhood, especially when it meant completing my graphic design degree part-time. "Rachel is focusing on her career first," she would say during our weekly phone calls. "She's really building something for herself in New York." Rachel had moved to Manhattan after college for a marketing job that our mother described as prestigious and high-powered, though the details always seemed conveniently vague. The cracks in my marriage started appearing after Jacob was born. David's pharmaceutical sales job required frequent travel, and the distance grew between us with each trip. When Jacob was 4, I found text messages between David and his coworker Melissa. The affair had been going on for nearly a year. The divorce was painful but necessary, and suddenly I was a single mother at 29, juggling freelance graphic design work while raising 2 young children. My financial situation became increasingly precarious. Child support helped but wasn't enough, and freelance work was inconsistent. My mother never failed to remind me that Rachel would never have let herself end up in this position. Even as Rachel posted Instagram photos of exotic vacations and designer purchases from her Manhattan apartment. 6 months ago, I caught a break when George, an old friend of my mother's, offered me a 2-bedroom apartment at below market rent. It wasn't fancy, but it was in a good school district and had enough space for the 3 of us. I signed a 2-year lease and finally felt like we were finding stable ground. Then 3 months ago, Rachel unexpectedly moved back to Portland. She told everyone she was taking a break from her marketing career to reassess her priorities, but something about the sudden move fell off. My mother immediately shifted into high gear, helping Rachel get settled while criticizing me for not doing more to support my sister during her career transition. Family helps family, Amanda. My mother lectured during our last Sunday dinner together in November. Rachel would do the same for you if the situations were reversed. I bit my tongue instead of pointing out that Rachel had never once offered to help me during my divorce or financial struggles. Last Christmas had been tense, but manageable. We gathered at my parents' house, exchanged gifts, and maintained the facade of a happy family. This year, I was determined to make it special for Emma and Jacob, despite my tight budget. I spent weeks finding perfect, affordable gifts and baking their favorite cookies. The kids made handmade presents for their grandparents, aunt, and uncle. I even splurged on a new dress for myself, a small act of defiance against my mother's inevitable comments about my shabby appearance. The week before Christmas, the family group chat became unusually quiet. My messages about arrival times and what dishes to bring went unanswered. 2 days before Christmas, my brother Michael called. "Hey, have you done something to upset Mom?" he asked without preamble. "Not that I know of," I replied, wrapping Jacob's new action figures while hiding in my bedroom closet. "Why?" "She seems off. Keeps talking about how family loyalty is being tested this year." "Well, that sounds ominous and vague, which is Mom's specialty," I joked. "Did she give any details?" "No." But Rachel was there nodding along. "I thought maybe you two had some kind of fight." "I haven't spoken to Rachel in weeks," I said truthfully. "Huh. Well, see you at brunch then." Hope it's not too weird. Little did I know just how weird it would get. Christmas morning dawned with the kind of perfect light snowfall that makes everything look like a holiday card. Emma woke me at 6:30, unable to contain her excitement any longer. We woke Jacob, and the kids tore through their modest pile of presents with unbridled joy. The living room became a cheerful disaster of wrapping paper and excited shrieks. "Mom, the art set has real pastels," Emma exclaimed, carefully examining each colored stick. "Look, it's exactly the dinosaur I wanted," Jacob shouted, clutching the T-Rex I'd hunted through 3 different stores to find. I sipped my coffee, watching them with my heart full. This was what mattered, their happiness, not my mother's approval or Rachel's seemingly perfect life. We had agreed to meet at my parents' house at 11 o'clock for Christmas brunch. I helped the kids pack up their grandparents' gifts and the cookies they'd decorated. Emma wore the red velvet dress she'd picked out, while Jacob sported a little button-up shirt and clip-on tie. I put on my new emerald sweater dress and even took time with my makeup and hair. For once, I wouldn't give my mother anything to criticize. The drive took 20 minutes. Snow falling more heavily now. Emma and Jacob sang along to Christmas songs on the radio, their excitement building as we got closer. "Do you think Grandma made her special cinnamon rolls?" Jacob asked. "And will Tyler be there with our cousin presents?" Emma added, referring to Michael's son who was her age. "I'm sure Grandma made all the special food," I assured them. Pulling onto my parents' street. And yes, Uncle Michael said they'd be there. We parked behind Rachel's new Audi in the driveway. I noticed my brother's car was missing, but didn't think much of it. They were probably running late too. The kids bounded up the cleared walkway to the front door, careful not to drop their gifts and cookies. The house looked picture perfect with white lights and evergreen garlands. Through the window, I could see the towering Christmas tree in the living room, the same spot it had been throughout my childhood. Emma rang the doorbell while Jacob performed an impatient little dance beside her, his breath making little clouds in the cold air. We waited longer than usual. I was about to suggest ringing again when I saw movement behind the frosted glass panel beside the door. My mother's face appeared, peering out through the window. Our eyes met. Instead of the warm smile I expected, it was Christmas after all. Her expression remained stony. She disappeared from the window, and I heard the deadbolt turning. The door opened just a crack, not the usual wide welcome on Christmas morning. My mother stood in the opening, blocking any view into the house. She was dressed immaculately in a cashmere sweater and pearls, her hair perfectly styled. "Merry Christmas, Mom," I said, confusion already creeping in. We brought. Today's not a good day for your kind of energy, she interrupted, her voice cold and clipped. Her eyes flickered briefly to Emma and Jacob before returning to me with unmistakable dismissal. I felt like I'd been slapped. Emma and Jacob looked up at me, confusion clear on their small faces. Jacob's lower lip began to tremble. But it's Christmas, was all I could manage to say. Yes, and we're having a peaceful one this year, my mother replied. You should have thought about consequences before your actions. Before I could respond, she closed the door firmly. I stood frozen for several seconds, my mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. Emma tugged at my hand. Mommy? Why is Grandma mad? Did we do something wrong? Her question snapped me back to reality. My children were standing in the snow, rejected by their grandmother on Christmas morning. Whatever was happening, I needed to protect them from this hurt. I squeezed their hands and mustered a calm I didn't feel. No, sweethearts, you didn't do anything wrong. Grandma isn't feeling well today. Let's go get pancakes instead. But our presents for Grandma and Grandpa, Jacob said, holding up his carefully wrapped package. And Aunt Rachel and Uncle Michael, Emma added, her voice small. We'll save them for another day, I promised, guiding them back to the car. Let's make a new adventure today. As I buckled them into their seats, I blinked back tears. What had I supposedly done? My mother's words echoed in my head. You should have thought about consequences before your actions. What actions? The last time we'd spoken had been a perfectly normal conversation about Christmas plans. I drove to Holiday Diner, the only place open on Christmas morning. The cheerful red booths and Christmas decorations felt surreal against my spinning thoughts. The kids, resilient as always, perked up at the promise of chocolate chip pancakes and hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. As they colored their placemats, I checked my phone. No missed calls from my mother, but several text notifications from extended family members. Heard about what happened. How could you? From Aunt Karen. Family first, Amanda. Disappointed in you. From Uncle Steve. Your mother is devastated. Fix this. From my stepfather Robert. What was happening? What had I supposedly done? Then my phone rang. Michael. I'm with the kids at Holiday Diner. I said immediately. What's going on? Mom just turned us away at the door. Why did you cancel your sister's lease? Michael demanded, his voice a mixture of anger and panic. What? What lease? What are you talking about? Rachel's apartment lease. She got an eviction notice yesterday saying you demanded the landlord terminate her lease immediately. On Christmas Eve, Amanda? Really? I felt like I'd stepped into the twilight zone. Michael, I have no idea what you're talking about. Rachel has an apartment? Since when? His pause told me he was equally confused. Wait, you really don't know? Rachel moved into an apartment owned by George Winters last month. George Winters? That's my landlord, Michael. Wait, what? I live in one of George's buildings. Have for 6 months now. But I had nothing to do with Rachel's living situation. I didn't even know she was renting from George. There was a long pause. I could hear heated whispers in the background. Michael, is Rachel there with you right now? Everyone's here for Christmas brunch, Amanda. Except you, apparently. The pieces started falling into place. Where is Rachel living exactly? What's the address? Michael told me, and my stomach dropped. It was my building, apartment 3B. I lived in 2A. Michael, something's very wrong here. I never contacted George about any lease. I barely even talked to Rachel. Why would I? She has emails, Amanda. Emails from you to George, demanding he evict her immediately. She showed them to all of us. That's impossible, I said, watching Emma help Jacob pour syrup on his pancakes. I never sent any emails about Rachel to anyone. Well, someone did. Using your email account, with details only you would know about her. I felt physically ill. Michael, I'm telling you, this wasn't me. Someone's setting me up. His sigh was heavy with disbelief. Fix this, Amanda. You've ruined Christmas. The call disconnected. I sat in the booth, stunned. As the holiday music played cheerfully overhead and my children enjoyed their consolation breakfast, unaware that our family had just imploded. With shaking hands, I dialed George's number from the diner parking lot. The kids were still inside finishing their pancakes, watched over by the friendly waitress who'd taken pity on our car trouble story. George answered on the fourth ring, his voice cautious. Amanda? Merry Christmas. George, I need to understand what's happening. My brother says Rachel was evicted from one of your apartments because of me. There was a confused pause. But you sent the termination request yourself. No, I didn't. I've never contacted you about Rachel's lease. I didn't even know she was renting from you. Amanda, I have the emails. You wrote that having your sister in the same building was causing family problems. You asked me to terminate her lease as a personal favor. My mind raced. George, when did Rachel start renting from you? About 2 months ago. She said you recommended the building to her. 2 months ago. Right after Rachel mysteriously returned from New York. And when did you receive these emails from me? Last week. December 18th. You followed up with signed documents on the 20th. I took a deep breath. George, I never sent those emails. I never signed any documents. Someone is impersonating me. The silence stretched between us. George, please. What email address were those messages from? He told me, and my heart sank. It was my personal Gmail account. Someone hacked my email, I said, more to myself than to George. Can you forward those emails to me? I need to see what was sent. I suppose I can do that. George said slowly, but Amanda, the lease termination is already processed. The apartment has been promised to a new tenant. A horrible suspicion formed. Who's the new tenant, George? He hesitated. Your sister, Rachel Riley. She's taking over the lease on January 1st. At a reduced rate, given the circumstances. The betrayal was so breathtaking I couldn't speak for several seconds. She showed me texts from you, Amanda, saying you wanted to make things right by helping her get a better apartment in the building. You agreed to vacate your apartment so she could have it. I'm vacating my apartment, I whispered. According to the lease termination you signed, effective December 31st. The world tilted beneath me. 6 days. I had 6 days before my children and I would be homeless. George, I never agreed to this. I never signed anything. Rachel forged my signature. His voice hardened. That's a serious accusation, Amanda. Yes, it is. And it's true. I watched through the window as Emma helped Jacob clean syrup off his face. I'll prove it to you. Just please, forward me those emails. After hanging up, I tried calling my mother repeatedly. Each call went straight to voicemail. I texted, Mom, we need to talk. Someone is pretending to be me. No response. Then a text from my stepfather, Robert. Your mother is very disappointed in your vindictiveness. We raised you better than this. Emma pushed open the diner door, Jacob trailing behind her. Mom, are you okay? You look sad. I forced a smile. Just a grown-up problem, sweetie. Nothing for you to worry about. But when we arrived home, the problem became impossible to hide. Taped to our apartment door was an official notice. Lease termination confirmation. Apartment 2A, Winters Properties. Tenant, Amanda Riley. Vacate by December 31st. I ushered the kids inside, told them to watch their new Christmas movie, and locked myself in the bathroom. The panic attack hit with full force. Gasping breaths, tunnel vision, the floor shifting beneath me. Where would we go in 6 days? How could Rachel do this? How could my mother support this? My phone rang. Lisa, my best friend since college. Merry Christmas. Just checking how brunch went with the dragon lady. The moment I heard her voice, the tears came. Between sobs, I explained everything, being turned away at the door, Michael's accusation, George's revelation, the eviction notice. That evil witch, Lisa exclaimed, meaning Rachel. And your mother is supporting this? Honey, that's not just toxic family drama, that's actual fraud. That's identity theft. That's illegal. I don't know what to do, I admitted, sitting on the bathroom floor. I have 6 days to find a new place in winter with holiday schedules, no savings. And, stop, Lisa interrupted firmly. You're not going anywhere. First, you're bringing the kids to my place for dinner tonight. Second, we're calling my cousin Catherine, who's a lawyer. Third, Rachel doesn't get to steal your home through fraud. After hanging up, I splashed cold water on my face and tried to regain composure. I needed to be strong for Emma and Jacob. When I opened my bathroom door, Emma stood in the hallway, her small face serious. Mom, are we in trouble? She asked quietly. Is that why Grandma wouldn't let us in? I knelt down to her level. No, sweetie, we're not in trouble. There's just been a misunderstanding with Grandma and Aunt Rachel. I'm working on fixing it. Why would Aunt Rachel be mad at us? She never even visits. Out of the mouths of babes. Rachel had barely acknowledged her niece and nephew over the years. Despite living just across the country. No birthday cards, no Christmas presents unless they were physically in the same room, no FaceTime calls to stay connected. Later that evening, while the kids played with Lisa's daughter Zoe, I scrolled through social media. There it was. Rachel had posted photos from Christmas at our parents' house. Turkey, presents, smiling faces. My mother, stepfather, brother, sister-in-law, nephew. One big happy family. The caption made me physically ill. So blessed to have family that truly supports each other through hard times. Hashtag real family love, hashtag Christmas. My mother had commented, so blessed to have my special girl home again where she belongs. As I stared at the happy photos, a memory surfaced. Last week, my mother had asked to use my phone to call her friend Patricia when her own phone died during a rare visit to my apartment. She'd disappeared into the kitchen for nearly 15 minutes. Had she been snooping? Had she found something to use against me? I checked my email, digging through spam folders and deleted items. There they were. Emails between me and George about terminating Rachel's lease. Emails I had never written or sent. But that wasn't all. I found drafts of hostile messages supposedly from me to various family members, scheduled to send after Christmas. Complaints about holiday gifts, criticisms of my mother's cooking. Accusations about favoritism. Someone, Rachel most likely, had created a digital trail making me look unstable and vindictive, and she'd done it using access to my email account. Possibly during my mother's visit. Lisa, I called weakly. I need to use your laptop. Over the next hour, I discovered the full extent of Rachel's deception. Fake Amanda had been sending subtle messages to family members for weeks, laying groundwork for the ultimate betrayal. There were even screenshots of fake text messages showing me threatening Rachel. This is seriously messed up, Lisa said, reading over my shoulder. Your sister needs professional help. But the final blow came later that night, after the kids were asleep in Lisa's guest room. My banking app notified me of a transfer. My security deposit had been moved to a new account. Rachel's account, according to the confirmation email from George. I collapsed onto Lisa's couch, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the betrayal. Not just Rachel's elaborate fraud, but my mother's willingness, eagerness even, to believe the worst of me. To exclude me and my children from Christmas. To support making us homeless. The pain was physical, radiating through my chest as tears streamed down my face. This wasn't new behavior, I realized. This was just the most extreme version of what had happened my entire life. Rachel being believed. Rachel being favored. Rachel being chosen. Always. I can't fight them, I whispered to Lisa as she handed me a glass of wine. They're my family. No, Lisa said firmly, sitting beside me. Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't frame you for things you didn't do. Family doesn't try to make you and your children homeless at Christmas. I cried until there were no tears left, falling asleep on Lisa's couch surrounded by discarded tissues. When I woke the next morning, something had shifted inside me. The grief remained, but alongside it was something new. Determination. Anger. Resolve. I wouldn't let them take everything from me again. Not this time. Christmas evening was a strange balance of trying to maintain normalcy for the children while my world collapsed around me. We ate dinner at Lisa's, opened the few presents she had for the kids, and watched Christmas movies. Emma and Jacob were resilient, but confused by the sudden change in plans. As we prepared for bed in Lisa's guest room, Emma looked up at me with those perceptive eyes that sometimes made her seem far older than 10. "Mom," she asked in a small voice, "does Grandma not love us anymore?" The question broke my heart. "Grandma is going through something right now," I said carefully. "Sometimes adults make mistakes and bad choices, even grandmas." "But it's Christmas," Jacob said, clutching his new dinosaur. "Christmas is for family." "You're right, buddy. And we're a family. You, me, and Emma. We're the most important family, and we're together." After they fell asleep, I made calls to family members, hoping someone would listen to my side. The responses were devastating. "Aunt Karen, your mother told us what you did to Rachel." "I never thought you'd stoop so low, Amanda." "Uncle Steve, I always thought you had more integrity than this. Using your position with George to punish your sister is shameful." "Cousin Jennifer, I'm staying out of it, but you should really apologize to Rachel and your mom." My email inbox contained more evidence of Rachel's campaign. In my spam folder, I found dozens of emails Rachel had sent impersonating me to various family members over the past month. Small complaints at first, then increasingly erratic messages, laying the groundwork for everyone to believe I was unstable and vindictive. There were screenshots of fake text messages supposedly from me to Rachel. "You've always been Mom's favorite. Now you're trying to take my apartment too. Stay away from MY building and MY landlord. You'll regret coming back to Portland and ruining my life again." Messages I never wrote. Conversations that never happened, all designed to make me look unhinged and jealous. Lisa arrived with leftovers from her family's Christmas dinner and sat with me at her kitchen table as I showed her the mounting evidence. "This is beyond family drama," Lisa said, examining the emails. "This is identity theft. This is forgery. You need to talk to the police." "Against my own sister? My mother would never forgive me." "Your mother is already helping your sister steal your home," Lisa pointed out bluntly. "What exactly are you trying to preserve here?" She was right. But the idea of taking legal action against my family felt impossible. I'd spent my entire life seeking my mother's approval. Could I really file charges against her golden child? As if on cue, a notification appeared on my phone. Rachel had posted again on social media, a selfie in front of my apartment building. "So grateful to Mom for helping me find stability after a challenging year. Hashtag fresh start, hashtag family, hashtag blessed." My mother's public reply twisted the knife, always protecting my children from harm. "Some people don't understand that family means supporting each other, not tearing each other down." The comments from family and friends poured in, praising my mother's generosity and Rachel's resilience. Not one person questioned why Rachel was moving into MY apartment building, into MY apartment. Then came the final betrayal. A bank notification. Security deposit transfer complete. My $2.200 deposit had been transferred to an account under Rachel's name, with my forged authorization. I showed Lisa the notification, my hand shaking. "That's it," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling Catherine right now. This isn't about family anymore. This is about fraud." That night, after the kids were asleep, I completely broke down. Decades of similar betrayals flooded back. Rachel taking credit for my school projects, Rachel accidentally spilling bleach on my prom dress, Rachel dating my college boyfriend after we broke up. Always with my mother's tacit approval, always with the family rallying around Rachel while I was told to be the bigger person and stop being so sensitive. I cried until my body ached, until tissues piled around me like snow, until Lisa gently covered me with a blanket as I finally fell into exhausted sleep. Morning came with painful clarity. I couldn't fight my family using the old rules, emotional appeals, reason, familial obligation. They had changed the game entirely. If I wanted to protect myself and my children, I needed to change too. I looked at Emma and Jacob sleeping peacefully in the guest bed, unaware that their home was being stolen by their grandmother and aunt. My responsibility was to them, not to a mother who had never truly supported me or a sister who was willing to make children homeless at Christmas. I won't let them take everything from me again, I whispered to the morning light streaming through unfamiliar curtains. The day after Christmas, Boxing Day, I made my decision. After arranging for Lisa to watch Emma and Jacob, I drove to my parents' house alone. My heart pounded as I parked behind the now familiar lineup of family cars. Everyone was still there, celebrating without us. I had spent the morning gathering evidence, printouts of the forged emails, screenshots of bank transfers, George's written statement confirming I had never personally contacted him about any lease termination. I carried it all in a manila folder, along with the eviction notice from my door. No one answered my first knock. I knocked again, louder, more insistent. Finally, my stepfather Robert opened the door, surprise evident on his face. "Amanda? What are you doing here?" "I need to speak with everyone," I said firmly, walking past him into the foyer before he could stop me. The family was gathered in the living room, my mother perched regally on her favorite armchair, Rachel beside her on the love seat, Michael and his wife Natalie on the couch. The Christmas tree still glittered with lights, presents scattered beneath it. My nephew Tyler played with a new toy truck on the carpet. My mother's eyes narrowed when she saw me. "I'm surprised you'd show your face here after what you've done." Rachel immediately teared up, the performance so convincing I might have believed it myself if I didn't know better. "How could you do this to me at Christmas, Amanda? Your own sister." I remained standing, refusing the subtle power play of taking a lower seat. "I think it's time we all heard the truth," I said, opening my folder. "I have evidence that Rachel has been impersonating me, forging my signature, and committing fraud. Here we go with the accusations." My mother sighed dramatically. "Always the victim, Amanda." "Mom, please," Michael interjected. "Let's hear what she has to say." I placed George's written statement on the coffee table. George Winters confirmed that I never contacted him about Rachel's lease. The emails were sent from my account after it was accessed without my permission. My mother waved dismissively. "Rachel explained everything. She needed help, and you refused to give it." "Help with what, exactly?" I asked, turning to Rachel. "What happened in New York, Rachel? Why did you really come back to Portland?" Rachel's eyes darted to our mother, a silent communication passing between them. "I just needed a change," Rachel said carefully. "The marketing industry is very cutthroat." "Rachel has always been ambitious," my mother added quickly. "Sometimes that means making career adjustments." I pulled out my next piece of evidence, an email from Rachel's former roommate Jessica that had arrived that morning in response to my desperate inquiry. "Rachel didn't leave New York for a career adjustment," I said, reading from the printout. "She was fired for embezzling from her company. Her roommates evicted her when she couldn't pay rent for 3 months. Sound familiar?" The room went silent. Michael straightened, looking between Rachel and me. "That's a lie," Rachel said. But her voice lacked conviction. "Jessica says you pulled the same scheme there, forged her signature to break the lease and steal her security deposit." "That's ridiculous," my mother interjected. "Rachel would never." "Did you know about this, Mom?" I interrupted, meeting her eyes directly. "Did you know Rachel was fired for stealing? That she had nowhere to go? Is that why you helped her steal my apartment?" My mother's momentary hesitation told me everything. Rachel explained that she needed help, my mother said carefully. She made a mistake at work that was misinterpreted. Embezzlement isn't a misinterpretation, I countered. And stealing my home isn't help. Rachel's tears had vanished, replaced by a calculating look I recognized from childhood, the expression she wore when backed into a corner. You've always had it easy with your perfect little family, she snapped. Some of us have had to work for everything we've gotten. Easy? I laughed incredulously. Being a single mother struggling to make ends meet while you posted about champagne brunches in Manhattan? That's your definition of easy. Girls, please, Robert attempted to intervene. But my mother silenced him with a look. Rachel needed a fresh start, my mother stated, as if this explained everything. I did what any mother would do. And what about your other daughter? I asked quietly. What about your grandchildren? Did you consider what would happen to us when you helped Rachel steal our home? The room fell silent again. Even Rachel had the grace to look uncomfortable. I've already co-signed Rachel's lease for your apartment, my mother finally said, lifting her chin defiantly. George agreed to expedite the process as a personal favor to me. The betrayal was so complete, so breathtaking, that for a moment I couldn't speak. My own mother had actively participated in making her grandchildren homeless at Christmas. Michael broke the silence. Mom, this is wrong and you know it. His voice was quiet but firm. Amanda has children. You can't just throw them out on the street. My mother turned on him instantly. Don't you start now. This family has always stuck together. This isn't sticking together, Michael argued. This is choosing Rachel over Amanda. Again. That again hung in the air, heavy with decades of history. For the first time, I felt the solidarity of someone else seeing the dynamic that had shaped our family. I gathered my evidence back into the folder, suddenly bone-tired. The years of seeking approval, of making excuses, of accepting less than I deserved, it all crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. You've chosen who matters to you, I said to my mother. I won't beg for love anymore. I turned to leave, my heart simultaneously breaking and hardening with each step toward the door. Don't expect us to help when you're homeless, my mother called after me. Her final attempt to assert control. I paused in the doorway, looking back at the tableau of my family, my mother rigid with anger, Rachel calculating her next move, Michael conflicted, Robert uncomfortable but silent. The Christmas tree lights blinked cheerfully, oblivious to the destruction of our family. Merry Christmas, I said softly, and closed the door behind me. In my car, parked in front of my parents' house, I broke down completely. My body shook with sobs as the full weight of what had happened crashed over me. My own mother had conspired to make her grandchildren homeless. My sister had committed fraud and identity theft against me. The family I'd spent my life trying to please had discarded me without hesitation. I couldn't drive in the state. I called Lisa, who arrived 20 minutes later to find me still crying in the driver's seat. Oh, honey, she said, opening my car door. What happened? I could barely speak through the tears. They knew. Everything. Mom co-signed. Rachel's taking my apartment. They don't care about the kids. Lisa helped me into her car and drove me back to her house, where Emma and Jacob were happily playing video games with her husband Mark, blissfully unaware that their world was collapsing. We're going to fix this, Lisa said firmly. Mark's brother is friends with Catherine Marshall. She's the best tenant rights attorney in Portland. I've already called her. She can see you tomorrow morning. The next day, Catherine's office was a haven of calm professionalism. While Lisa watched the kids, I laid out the entire situation, the forged emails, the fake lease termination, the transferred security deposit. My mother's admission of co-signing Rachel's new lease for my apartment. Catherine listened intently, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she leaned forward. Amanda, what your sister did is illegal. Identity theft, forgery, fraud, these are criminal offenses. What your mother did in facilitating this is potentially criminal as well. I can't send my mother and sister to jail, I protested weakly. What you can do, Catherine countered, is protect yourself and your children. The lease termination is fraudulent. George cannot legally evict you based on forged documents. And Rachel cannot move into an apartment that is legally leased to you. She outlined our immediate steps. File a police report for identity theft and forgery. Send a formal legal letter to George challenging the lease termination. Freeze my credit and bank accounts to prevent further fraud. And document all communication with my family. But what if George sides with my mother? They've been friends for years. George can be friends with whoever he wants. But if he tries to enforce a fraudulent lease termination, he'll be breaking the law. Friendship won't protect him from that. I left Catherine's office with a strange feeling, part grief, part determination. I had spent my life avoiding conflict with my mother and Rachel. Now I was preparing for legal battle against them. That afternoon, I met with George at his office. Catherine beside me. His usual friendly demeanor had been replaced by cautious professionalism. Amanda, I'm sorry about this situation. But the lease termination was processed according to standard procedures. Catherine placed a folder on his desk. My client never authorized any lease termination. These are forged documents, Mr. Winters. Enforcing them would constitute wrongful eviction, which carries significant legal penalties in Oregon. George shifted uncomfortably. I have emails. From an email account that was accessed without my client's authorization. We filed a police report this morning for identity theft and forgery. The mention of police involvement changed George's expression entirely. I'm just trying to avoid getting caught in family drama. This isn't drama, I said quietly. This is fraud. Someone forged my signature and tried to steal my home. George looked between us, weighing his options. Finally, he sighed. What do you want me to do? Rescind the fraudulent lease termination immediately, Catherine answered. Confirm in writing that Amanda's original lease remains in effect. Return the security deposit that was illegally transferred. And provide copies of all communication regarding this matter for the police investigation. By the time we left his office, I had written confirmation that my lease remained valid and a check for my return security deposit. The relief was overwhelming. My phone had been buzzing incessantly. My mother's voicemail was cold and manipulative. I can't believe you'd put your sister through this after everything she's been through. This vindictiveness is exactly why we needed space from you at Christmas. I deleted it without responding. That evening, I had my first session with Dr. Meredith Cooper, a therapist specializing in family trauma. Unlike previous therapy attempts focused on managing my reactions to my family, Dr. Cooper zeroed in on the core issue. What you're describing is a lifelong pattern of emotional abuse from your mother, with your sister as both participant and weapon. The Christmas rejection and apartment scheme aren't isolated incidents, they're escalations of established patterns. It was both devastating and validating to hear someone name what I had experienced. Years of dismissal, comparison, conditional love. And gaslighting had left me permanently seeking approval I would never receive. Your mother is showing classic narcissistic traits, Dr. Cooper continued. The golden child/scapegoat dynamic between you and your sister is textbook. Breaking free from these patterns is difficult but essential work. As I drove home from the session, my phone rang. Michael, can we meet? He asked without preamble. Alone. There's something you need to know. We met at a coffee shop the next day. Michael looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. I've been doing a lot of thinking since Christmas, he started, rotating his coffee cup nervously. I've watched this happen our whole lives and said nothing. Mom always favored Rachel. Always believed her over you, always made excuses for her behavior. Why now? I asked. What's changed? Michael reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a manila envelope. After you left, I started asking questions. Rachel's story wasn't adding up. So I did some digging. Inside the envelope were printouts of emails between Rachel and various people in New York, her former employer, roommates, creditors. The picture they painted was damning. Rachel hadn't just been fired. She was facing potential criminal charges for embezzling nearly $50,000 from client accounts. Her roommates hadn't just evicted her. They had filed a police report for stolen property and forged checks. She's done this before, Amanda. Multiple times. The apartment scheme isn't new. It's her pattern. Later that day, I received an email from Jessica, Rachel's former roommate in New York. She had found my contact information through social media after I reached out. "I'm so sorry this is happening to you too," she wrote. "Rachel did exactly the same thing to me and our other roommate Zoe last year. Forged emails, fake lease termination, stolen security deposit. We filed police reports, but she had already left the state. If you need a statement for your case, I'm happy to provide one." With mounting evidence and support from Catherine, I made a difficult decision. We sent a formal cease and desist letter to Rachel and my parents, outlining the fraudulent activities and demanding all attempts to take my apartment cease immediately. The police officially opened a fraud investigation, with Detective Caroline Murphy assigned to the case. Identity theft cases between family members are unfortunately common, she explained during our meeting. But this level of coordination and planning is unusual. As December drew to a close, I found myself in an unexpected position of strength. My lease was secure. Rachel's attempts to claim my apartment had been legally blocked. The family narrative was shifting as Michael shared the truth with extended relatives. For the first time in my life, I wasn't desperately seeking my mother's approval or trying to match Rachel's facade of success. I was standing firmly in my own truth, protecting my children, and refusing to accept abuse disguised as family loyalty. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, it was truly mine. January passed in a blur of legal proceedings and emotional processing. Rachel accepted a plea deal for the forgery charges, receiving probation and court-ordered restitution instead of jail time. My mother and stepfather continued to defend her despite the legal verdict, insisting she had been pushed to desperate measures by my hostility. I made the painful but necessary decision to maintain no contact with my mother and Rachel. The childhood hope of maternal love and approval had been my weakness for too long, the vulnerability they exploited repeatedly. Dr. Cooper helped me understand that grief was natural. I was mourning the mother I needed, but never had, the sister who could have been a friend but chose to be a rival. As Valentine's Day approached, I focused on creating new traditions with Emma and Jacob. We made heart-shaped cookies from scratch, decorated our apartment with paper chains, and planned a special movie night with hot chocolate and all the pillows and blankets we could find. "Is Grandma still sick?" Jacob asked one evening as we worked on Valentine's for his classmates. I had been as honest as possible with the children while keeping explanations age-appropriate. "Grandma isn't sick in her body," I explained. "But sometimes people can be sick in the way they treat others. Grandma and Aunt Rachel made some very bad choices that hurt our family. Will they ever get better?" Emma asked, carefully cutting out a red paper heart. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. But until they do, it's okay for us to keep our distance to stay safe." My weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Cooper became anchors in the storm of rebuilding my life. We worked through the patterns of my childhood, the constant comparison to Rachel, the impossibly high standards, the love that always seemed conditional on performance and compliance. "You're breaking a generational cycle," Dr. Cooper told me during a particularly difficult session. "By refusing to accept emotional abuse for yourself and protecting your children from it, you're creating a healthier future for your family." My relationship with Michael strengthened as he began his own therapy journey. He had always been the peacekeeper in our family, the one who tried to smooth things over and avoid conflict. Now he was recognizing how that role had enabled the dysfunction to continue. "I should have stood up for you years ago," he admitted during a lunch together. "I saw how Mom treated you differently. I knew it wasn't right. We were kids," I reminded him. "And later, we were both just trying to survive the family dynamics we'd been raised in." Work improved as well. The clarity and boundaries in my personal life somehow translated to professional confidence. I landed 2 major client contracts that brought financial stability I hadn't experienced since before the divorce. I was finally able to build a modest savings account and take Emma and Jacob for a weekend trip to the coast, a luxury that would have been unthinkable months earlier. Lisa and Ryan. The man I had been casually dating before the Christmas catastrophe became pillars of support. Ryan had witnessed the aftermath of my family's betrayal and, instead of running from the drama, had stepped up with practical help and emotional support. He fixed my car when it needed repairs I couldn't afford, brought groceries when I was overwhelmed with legal meetings, and never once made me feel like my family chaos was a burden. "This is what real family looks like," Lisa said during our first chosen family dinner in March. We had gathered at her house, me, Emma, Jacob, Ryan, Lisa, her husband Mark, and their daughter Zoe. The table was loud with conversation and laughter, everyone passing dishes and sharing stories of their week. Emma and Jacob thrived in this environment of honest, supportive relationships. Their questions about their grandmother and aunt gradually decreased as new traditions and connections filled the void. Jacob's kindergarten teacher commented on his increased confidence, while Emma's art reflected brighter colors and happier themes. The final confrontation came unexpectedly in April when my mother appeared uninvited at my apartment. I opened the door to find her standing there, perfectly coiffed as always, an expression of determined patience on her face. "This has gone on long enough," she said without greeting. "It's time to put this foolishness behind us." For months earlier, those words would have sent me spiraling into guilt and self-doubt. Now I felt only a calm certainty. "No," I said simply. My mother blinked, clearly unprepared for direct refusal. "Excuse me?" "No," I repeated. "You're not welcome in our lives until you acknowledge the harm you've caused and make genuine amends." "I'm your mother," she said, as if this single fact overrode all other considerations. "Yes, you are. And you helped Rachel try to make your grandchildren homeless at Christmas. You chose who matters to you, Mom." "I'm choosing who matters to me." Her face contorted with familiar righteous anger. "After everything I've done for you." "Goodbye, Mom," I said firmly, closing the door despite her protests. I leaned against the closed door, expecting tears or panic, but feeling only a surprising peace. The encounter that would have devastated me months ago now felt like the necessary closing of a chapter. A week later, a letter arrived from my stepfather, Robert. Unlike my mother's demands and Rachel's manipulations, his words expressed genuine regret. "I should have done more to prevent what happened," he wrote. "I've enabled your mother's behavior for years, and I'm starting to recognize the damage that's caused. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that not everyone believes the narrative that's been created about you." Spring arrived with new beginnings. We celebrated Emma's 11th birthday with a backyard party at Lisa's house. Michael and his family came, bringing Tyler to play with his cousins. Ryan helped organize games and built a piñata shaped like Emma's favorite animal, an otter. During my final therapy session before switching to monthly maintenance visits, Dr. Cooper asked about my biggest breakthrough. "I think it's realizing I don't need my mother's approval to be whole," I answered after consideration. "I spent my entire life trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Now I'm surrounded by people who love me and my children without conditions or competitions." When Jacob brought home an art project titled My Family, I studied the crayon figures holding hands, me, Emma, Michael, Lisa, and Ryan. My mother, Rachel, and Robert were noticeably absent. "Is this everyone in our family?" I asked carefully. Jacob nodded confidently. These are the people who love us all the time, not just when we do things right. Out of the mouths of babes. Indeed. In May, we moved to a slightly bigger apartment in the same complex. Lisa, Ryan, Michael, and several friends helped with the move, turning work into a celebration with music and pizza. As I unpacked in the new space, I found an old family photo taken at Christmas years ago. My parents, Michael, Rachel, and me all smiling stiffly for the camera. I placed it in a drawer rather than throwing it away, acknowledging the past without letting it dominate my present. Later that evening, I looked around at the new gathering in my living room, the chosen family who had shown up when it mattered most. There was laughter, inside jokes, genuine warmth. This was what family truly meant, not perfect genetics or obligatory holidays, but people who chose each other daily through actions and love. The peace I felt wasn't about forgetting the pain or pretending the betrayal hadn't happened. It was about building something new and better from the ruins of what had been lost. I had finally let go of what family should be and embraced what family truly is, a circle of love and protection that starts with how we treat ourselves and extends to those we choose to include. In our most intimate space. Most importantly, I had broken the cycle for Emma and Jacob. They would grow up knowing they were worthy of unconditional love, that healthy boundaries weren't selfish, and that real family protected rather than exploited vulnerability. The healing wasn't complete. Such deep wounds never heal perfectly, but I was no longer bleeding from them. And that, I realized, was victory enough. Have you ever had to create boundaries with toxic family members? What helped you find the strength to stand up for yourself? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and healing. Remember that family is about love and respect, not just DNA. Thank you for listening. And I wish you all the courage to create the family you deserve, whether they're related by blood or by choice.